Hey everyone, welcome to PunkCast. My name is William Maxwell. I'm a student of Web3 and the owner of Punk912. CryptoPunks are 10,000 uniquely generated characters stored permanently on the Ethereum blockchain. No punk is the same. This is a show dedicated to celebrating the punks behind the punk. My hope for this podcast is that we capture the essence of the punk culture, elevate the brand and the individual behind the punk. One last thing. Projects discussed on the show is not financial advice. Crypto and NFTs are a volatile and risky asset class. Please always do your own research. Other than that, let's go. Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of PunkCast. Today we're back with Punk712. She's got two attributes with the straight hair and purple lipstick. In real life though, she's an author and an OG to the NFT world and also the co-founder of Dada, a visual conversation platform for collaborative art, which is also the first platform to code royalties into smart contracts way back in 2017. Please welcome OG Punk to the show, Judy Mam. Judy, how are you?
Very, very happy to be here. It's such a privilege to be among punks.
So where are you from? I detect a slight accent.
Well, I'm glad you call it slight. I am from Mexico City and I'm currently in Mexico City. So this is my hometown, but I have been living in New York for like the past 32 years.
Amazing.
I'm just here for the winter. Yes.
Amazing. Well, love to have you on PunkCast. And I think just as we were chatting earlier on, I think that there are a few punks that reached out and sort of said, I need to get Judy on the show because, you've got a bit of a track record in the NFT OG space that we sort of haven't uncovered yet. So shout out to Phantom Scribbler and Noah for shouting that out. But maybe we could just start with just a bit of a simple question about your background. You know, who is Judy Mam? Where did you come from and what did you study? What's your sort of story? And then we could sort of find our way into crypto and NFTs.
Sure. I'll try to be brief. Basically, I come from here, from Mexico City. I studied English literature, and therefore I am primarily a writer. I originally, many years ago, come from advertising. I was a creative director in advertising, copywriter. And that's how I met Beatriz Ramos, who is my co-founder, the founder and creator of Dada, because I used to be her client and she used to have an animation studio and a production studio and they did beautiful work and we collaborated many times and at some point after I'd left the agency and I was freelancing, she came to me. She said, I want to do like a social network for artists. This was around 2012 and I would like you to be with me. And so she basically wrote me in. And at the time, Dada, we were trying to do. The mission has always been the same, which is to allow and help artists to capture the value of what they create. But at the time, at the very beginning, we were doing something like artists could like recommend each other to clients and stuff like that, and upload their stuff. And at some point, Bea said, this is not going to work because artists are never going to do this. And platforms like this already exist. What we need is for artists to have a conversation through what they know how to do best, which is through art, through making drawings. So, I mean, it's pretty, I think it's a very kind of visionary thing, considering also that at the time, Facebook was exploding and Instagram was exploding and everything was giving a like and everything was vertical. And Bea said, no, we're going to ask people to draw and somebody will draw and somebody else will respond to that drawing and a visual conversation is going to happen. There's going to be a dialogue of art. And it was kind of a crazy idea because it was against everything that that they teach you in startup school, right? Because asking people to draw online like is a major ask. But that's the genesis of the Dada drawing conversation platform, and which actually we launched it the way it is today in 2014. So this is our 10th anniversary. Yeah, so we started out with maybe like 5,000 people, but then we did a Facebook application, and then we were able to get like 150,000 members in like a relatively short period of time. But of course, as you can imagine, at the time, it was absolutely impossible to actually capture value from digital content, right? Because there were really no interesting ways. We tried, um, merchandising, and we did T-shirts, and the margins were low, and there was so much piracy, and nothing worked. And then in 2017, Bea went to the Ethereal Summit, and we started hearing things about blockchain, and she went to the Ethereal Summit, and she came back and reported. She said, "This is what we have to do." So in 20 that was I believe that was March of 2017, and by October of 2017 we had launched our first NFT collection. They were not called NFTs yet because they were not non-fungible. Our first collection of ERC20s called Creeps and Weirdos. And I think for your audience it's going to be very interesting to hear that our smart contract was borrowed with the permission of Matt and John. It is borrowed from the CryptoPunk smart contract. And I remember that we started, trying to meet with anyone who was working on this technology for art. And I believe that Bea somehow heard about John and Matt, and she found John in LinkedIn, and she sent him a message with her phone number. And I think he called back 5 minutes later, and we became, of course, friends with them, and they were incredibly gracious and generous with their contract and with their advice. And we have a wonderful recording where, like, John is saying, we have like a conversation with him on the phone, and he's saying, "Yeah, I think there's something called IPFS. You should take a look into it." I mean, it was that early, right? So they launched, I believe, you can correct me, in the summer of 2017, the Punks. I don't remember if it was June or July. And we launched our Creeps and Weirdos in October 5 of 2017. And so I think that's in a nutshell where I come from.
Wow, there's so many fascinating things to sort of unpack there. Maybe we're just interested just to sort of understand. Like, you said you started off in writing and then ended up in advertising. Of all the things you could have, you know, chosen to do in your life, why did you sort of pick that path?
Well, sometimes, to be a writer, like in any creative artistic endeavor, is really, really hard, right? And so I studied English literature. The paths for English literature are either you become an academic, which I really didn't want to, because I thought my knowledge about books and about knowing literature is knowing life, and I wanted it to be related to real life. And then, the path became narrower and narrower, because either you could be a teacher, or no one understood what you could do with English literature, and particularly in Mexico. And I thought, no, there has to be a practical way to do this. And so I was doing all kinds of different jobs. I was an executive assistant. I taught English. At some point, I was hired to write film reviews at a newspaper here in Mexico City, which I still do to this day in my own blog, which we can talk about it. I love film. That is, I think, the real love of my life. Um, and then these friends who had a little advertising agency were reading my reviews every week, and they thought, well, if she can write a film review, she can write advertising, right? So they hired me, and it wasn't necessarily that smooth a transition, because advertising, of course, is a craft that, a film review, you can have maybe 2 pages. Advertising, you have to do things in 30 seconds. So, but I mean, it's not rocket science either. So, you know, so that's how I started in advertising. And I actually, I was in advertising for many, many, many years, and I, kind of like, then I moved to New York, and I started from the very, very bottom, like being a proofreader, and then junior copywriter, and then up to, I became a VP creative director. And I always felt that they paid me to learn. I learned how kind of small movies are made, because commercials are made like movies. And I learned how corporate America works, which is rather scary. And but like at some point I was rather burnt out, and I became a freelancer, which was really great. And that's when Bea proposed that we do that. which wasn't called Dada. And I just have a funny story because we were trying to find a name for this platform, and I did all this research and name and brand and blah blah, and I think I came up with like 300 names, and she didn't like any of them. And one day in the morning, she says, "How about Dada?" And I said, "It's like it's really a great name, but I'm gonna kill you." You know, because here I am like spending months and months, and she wakes up one day. I'm like, that's a perfect name. Yes.
Ama amazing. And what was the genesis of Dada? I mean, what was the inspiration behind it? Who came up with the concept? Because, I mean, from advertising into art, that's sort of a very, different kind of field to venture into, right?
Well, but they are related. And what is interesting is that Bea came with the concept, and I really think that she came up with the concept. I really think that it was all in her mind, or it evolved in her mind. And the reason why Dada happened was because she was a very successful in her field. She had an animation studio. She was doing commercial art for different clients. But she thought, she used to work for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Her studio did the background colors,
Oh,
and
wow.
I mean, can you imagine the size of that brand, right? So that brand was making millions of dollars a year, and she was getting, not badly paid, but she was getting a tiny fraction of of what she was contributing to that. And she also worked for many different, like, super, blue chip brands, like, typical Coca-Cola, all kinds of, like, really big brands. And she thought, this is not fair. Artists don't, artists for hire do not capture um, um, the fair amount of value that they should, even if they do well. And she thought, and if I'm not doing that great, I cannot imagine how artists that are not into that track, that artists that are trying to survive, they have to have 5 jobs. They have to, people think it's a hobby. People think that you're some kind of bohemian that doesn't work. And she really wanted to change that. So behind that, there is really a very radical spirit of artists need to be, considered as great creators of value, not only for the collectors, but also they need to recover the value that they create in whatever field that they work, or so that's that. I think I give credit to her, because I cannot say that I came up with the idea, but I think that I have enabled her every step of the way.
That's amazing. I mean, it's so early too. I think when you were saying, this was in kicking off in 2012, where basically the problem that you're describing that needed to be solved, I mean, the solution wasn't going to be in until 2017 in some ways, until the Ethereum sort of smart contracts came true, right? So what a sort of fantastic story. What is she doing
I can
now?
just
Is she
well, she's still. I'll talk to about her shortly, but I just so you understand, we were at these accelerators, and uh, you know, uh, being
startup
trained
school? Yeah.
to do the startup thing, where we learned a lot. But everybody would say, "Oh, Dada is wonderful, but you are not going to be able to monetize unless you put advertising in it in the platform." And we were like, "We're never going to do that. We are never ever going to insert an ad for a brand in a platform which is like a free canvas for people to use." Or people would say, "Well, then you have to charge artists to use it." And we said, no, we don't want to do that either. It's free for everyone to use. So it really was hard. It really was challenging to find a way to monetize that was consistent with also with our principles of not extracting money from artists while we're trying to help artists capture value. And so, yes, when blockchain came around, it was like, a complete change of paradigm. As for Bea, she's in Chile right now. She's been a digital nomad for the past 5 years or more, and she's living in Valparaiso. And she's still, of course, we're both still, in our community. Dada has evolved to become an ecosystem, and I can talk more about that. But still around.
Amazing. Oh, well, yeah, why don't we talk about Dada then? So what is Dada? How would you describe that to people?
Well, Dada is a visual conversation platform where people speak to each other through drawings. That's how we have always described it. People from all over the world, you can come in for free. It's a Web2 platform where you sign up with an email and a password, and you can start drawing, and then someone will reply to you with another drawing. And I see it is almost like a music jam, but with art, because somebody starts a drawing, and the people who follow, they follow the, let's say, the tenor of the first drawing, so the colors, the topic, and then somebody else can come in. But we also have like a very interesting gamified structure, a structure in which, imagine that you make a beautiful drawing, and then I, who cannot draw for love or money, come in and do a stupid doodle. That, I mean, it's a doodle, but like, people have been doing this amazing, beautiful flowing conversation, and somebody comes in and does like just like a stick figure, and then that doesn't quite work. So we did a system in which, in order to draw, you have to earn the right to reply, because it is a conversation. It really works like a dialogue. So you have to make, and you have to accrue a number of points, like 200 points or something like that, which is not hard to do. And once you accrue these points, you can start replying to conversations of the level in which you are, but anyone can reply to you. And we really do not pay much attention to these levels, because we realize very early on that when you create levels, it starts competition between people instead of collaboration. So people start obsessing who is first and who is second and why I'm last. And so we took all of that out. So people gained like these things that we call dots, like color dots, but they don't know what they mean, and they don't know how many points they are. So it's a really interesting system in which people are kind of motivated to draw, but it's not competitive. And everything about how we design this platform is geared towards collaboration, not towards having. We had a leaderboard at a certain point, and then we artists kind of were, reporting back to us that on Facebook, when they could speak more freely, or like that's where they used to speak, people were starting to have like this little tension because who was first in the leaderboard. So we took it out. We said, this is not about who is better or who is first. This is about how you talk to one another. So I think that that describes Dada, and we have always kept it completely separate from whatever then we monetize. And that has to do also with what we call the invisible economy, which is a paper that we wrote in 2019. Mostly Bea did a lot of research on how you can build an alternative economy that is not dependent so completely in the market, that is not market driven, but it's like social norms driven, that is intrinsic motivation driven. So the paper is on our Medium blog, and everything that we have ever done stems from the visual conversation, from this system of encouraging collaboration.
Amazing. So I'm on the data.art website right now, and I think maybe just to describe it for some of the listeners, if they do end up going there, there's sort of like landscape panels, and right now I can sort of see, three, one sort of landscape panel broken up in three compartments with three artists, but all of them are continuing, I guess, the conversation or the piece of artwork in a very similar style of artwork with same color tones and the like. Some of them are absolutely stunning and super interesting to sort of watch. I mean, I could probably spend all day on this too. And actually, when I click on it and open it, it is actually a lot longer than three panels within landscape. It's
Yes,
actually
yes.
continuing. Wow.
Yes, we have conversations that have gone on for like 4 years. We have conversations. We never stop conversations. There's never an end. We also have branches. So let's say that you did the stick figure that ruined one of those beautiful conversations that you're seeing. The person who initiated the first drawing can can actually move you to a branch. So you can start. It starts a whole new branch, and some of these conversations have amazing branches. But that means that your nothing is ever censored. Your drawing is not erased. It just goes somewhere where it can start its own thing, right? So it's a very thoughtful uh, design that really is, I think, very unique. And when we build Dada, in startup school, they're always saying to you, oh, somebody's going to imitate you and Facebook is going to imitate you. And, you have that concern for like 15 minutes, and it's been 12 years, and there's nothing like that, because, because it, I don't think any big corporations are interested in imitating this model, because it's not a model for like engagement, and it's a model for creation. It's a model for true creation of art. So
Amazing.
engagement over time, no like amount of engagement. Mhm.
Amazing. So this one I'm looking at is from 8 years ago. This started this whole panel.
Mhm. And can
Um,
you describe it to me?
it's a gray and red sort of panel. It's Luis Martin Munoz, illustrator. Um, I'm sort of scrolling through. It's sort of like black and white and gray hues with
Yeah.
red.
Yes,
Uh,
I know which one it is. It's a little dank. It's a little kind of uh, weird looking. Yeah, yeah, I know exactly the one. Yeah, but there's so many different styles, and what is amazing to me is that the artists are not talking to each other, like guiding each other. Now do this, now do that. They just look at something and they immediately interpret the first drawing into something new that they create, and so it's astonishing. As you said, Dada, you can draw. Anyone can draw, but I know there's a lot of people that just come in and look at the art. It's almost like a living museum in a way. It's a living canvas. We had one of the early investors. I mean, like, we were at this accelerator called the Founder Institute, and the guy who led it said, every day I look at Dada for, like, I don't know, 10 minutes or half an hour, and it makes my day, and it makes me forget all my troubles. So yeah.
Absolutely. And it's just amazing just to sort of see the art that's been drawn and picked up and dropped off from different artists. I mean, some of it looks like it was done from the one artist. Like it's
Yes.
yeah, it's amazing. Really, really interesting. So I guess yeah, for I guess the listeners, definitely check out data.art, and I'll put the link in the tweet when this goes out. Okay, and then so where do you go with this with that data.art? You said there was a monetization component sort of in the background. Is it a different model? Because I mean, I look at this and I just think this would be a super interesting concept on NFTs at some stage, right? I mean,
Of
you could
course. And what we have done, of course, this is exactly what we thought too in 2017, because again, like, we wanted to preserve the integrity of the platform as a canvas for artists to draw. But we also, first of all, we also needed to survive. Basically, Bea and I bootstrapped the entire operation at the beginning. We had some investment from friends and family, a little investment here and there, but actually, you create a platform and it doesn't doesn't support itself unless there's some sort of revenue, and also, but always in the thought of remunerating artists for the value that they created as well, not only for ourselves. So when Bea came back from the Ethereum Summit and spoke about the blockchain and about these tokens, Ethereum, where like you could like make art and ERC20s, we understood that you could certainly tokenize some of this art. And we started experimenting, and our first collection was called Creeps and Weirdos, as I said, minted in October 5 of 2017. At the time, what we were aware of were two main influences: the rare pepes, because we were aware of the rare pepes because Fred Wilson, who is an investor, a venture guy from Union Square Ventures, was talking about this, and he would show these bizarre frogs on Twitter, and like he would say like, "Oh, I bought this for $25," and we were like, "Hold on a second, what frogs, whatever?" And so that was the art that we were aware of at the time. Although there were people before us who were doing experiments, um, we thought the pepes are really interesting because they have spawned like this community. They don't work in a platform; each one works separately, but there's this amazing, amazing, vibrant community of people that are creating these memes, and that are. It doesn't matter that they look like super fine art. Quite the contrary. I think the idea was to make them as dank as possible. So that was one of our influences, and of course the other one was the CryptoPunks. And so we took from them different things. From the Pepes, we really were inspired by the ethos of that very kind of like uh, almost anarchic community. And from the punks, when we saw that marketplace, when we saw the distribution, when we saw those 10,000 little creations, and how beautiful the execution of that entire project is, we thought this is what we need to do. So the creeps and weirdos are kind of I think a mix of those two influences, because they are what we did is we curated a set of 108 drawings with different levels of scarcity. So there's 5 levels of scarcity. We did 16,600 of them because the punks had done 10,000, and we thought, okay, I mean, you have to understand, no one knew what was the right thing to do. No one knew if there was going to be any money involved. So our first level of scarcity, the commons were $5 at Ethereum prices at the time, and I think the most expensive was $150. And at the time, anyone who would hear that you paid $150 for a JPEG would think that you were absolutely insane. So Bea and I curated creeps and weirdos because we felt that the people who were collecting at the time were mostly crypto bros, like crypto finance people, and like doing beautiful, I don't know, unicorns and rainbows was probably not going to be to their taste. So that's how it came about. But it's art by 30 different artists, 108 different artworks with 5 levels of scarcity. And we just basically took the CryptoPunk smart contract, created our own marketplace based on that contract. But what we did was we felt that it was important to encode royalties for artists, so that in secondary and later sales, the artist could get something back. And to our knowledge, we were the first platform to ever do this. And imagine, William, that at the time we were giving our artists a 30% royalty, because it's like, yeah, like on the first sale, I think Dada just took, it was like, I believe 70% went directly to the artist and 30% for us. And then on the secondary sale, it was 60% went to the collector after the sale, and then 30 for the artist and 10 for us. We don't have that structure anymore, but it was just us experimenting and trying to come up with fair ways to remunerate the community.
Amazing. I'm just browsing through all of the artwork as you're sort of talking through. Um, they're actually really cool.
Are
I'd
you
love
in
to.
the Creeps and Weirdo? Are you in the NFT data
Yeah,
art? Hmm.
NFT dot dot art. Yeah. So, but
Yes.
obviously that some of the prices on these um pretty high. I think the floor about 1/8 for one of these now. Really.
Which one?
I'm just looking at the price of in ETH for some of these pieces now. But I think like the
Well, I
floor
think some of them are the prices that some of the collectors are
have set.
are wanting to sell them for. But if you think, the creeps have been kind of historically very much under the radar, considering that we came before the crypto kitties. And for the longest time, people would make these lists about like the pioneering, pioneering platforms, and we were always left out for some reason. And it's taken a long time for people to recognize them. So I think, if you go to OpenSea, you will see that the prices are extremely affordable in secondary market, and then there are some that are there are historical NFTs. They are really, some people call them archaeological pieces. It's this is the thing where like we believe that they should be pretty much the value of the CryptoPunks, if you ask
Yeah,
me.
these they're beautiful pieces. I'd love to definitely sort of get some maybe some alpha for those listening. Definitely check these out. But if they're on the CryptoPunks contract, does that mean that we also have to wrap them to trade them on OpenSea and other
Yes.
platforms?
Yes, I mean we, because we were experimenting. There's a very complex story to the crypt. So there's a 2017 ERC20s that came out in 2017, and they are ERC20s, and therefore they have to be wrapped because otherwise you can't see them on OpenSea. And then in 2019, when the 721 standard came out, we decided to test that, and we have the collection. We call them the weirdos, and we did a collection of weirdos, which is half the supply, which are ERC 721s, which you can obviously trade on OpenSea or without wrapping. And then there, we have a really bizarre and interesting story. We decided to kind of like experiment with other collections. And Bea was really, when she saw what the market was doing, because at the very beginning, blockchain was this kind of very utopian thing. When you went to the Ethereal Summit and everybody was saying it's going to change the world, it's going to make people less poor, it's going to bring peace in the world and everything. And then the minute, like for instance, where people understood that there could be speculation and that there could be an enormous like raise in value, which is understandable because that's what art does in these things. When like the rare Pepe sold for 30, I believe it was 37, $39,000 at the first rare art festival. Bea said, "Oh, this is going to be the same thing as the art world, but just like digitally." And it came to pass that it became like as speculative as the art world, but on steroids, because it's so immediate. You press a button and you get a work of art pretty much immediately, without all the all the, I don't know, bureaucracy of the art world. So we decided to continue experimenting with different ways to launch these NFTs, and we took the marketplace away. We kind of like hid it, and it was hidden and dormant for the longest time. And in 2021, when the bull market was in its apogee, one day I get a call from Bea saying to me, "Something really weird is happening in our contract. Money is coming in. I don't know what's going on." And there were people from the CryptoPunks Discord who were looking for archaeological NFTs, and somebody uh, actually used time machine to go back to old links and found the buried Dada marketplace, and people started interacting directly with the contract at kind of like prices from 2017, having Ethereum had risen several times its value, but it still was like, instead of $5, $35. And they were buying like crazy. We call this the ape storm, because people were aping into this uh, hidden marketplace and buying the stuff, and then being absolutely furious that they couldn't trade it on OpenSea because they didn't know that they were buying ERC20s, because they were just the classic, apes that will buy anything and they don't do the research and whatever. So we had to open a Discord, and it was crazy. It was super duper crazy. But that's something that happened, and then we actually did something like a swap, so that people that had bought them could decide to keep them or wrap them or swap their 2019s for 2017s. So it was all like this crazy, crazy, crazy market explosion. Um, and I have to say that I know this is a weird segue, but like uh, when you know the saga of the CryptoPunks and all the acrimony that came later on when money came in, we just experienced a fraction of what John and Matt experienced at the worst of the of the acrimony in the CryptoPunks Discord, and we're like, this is not I mean, we cannot imagine that level of hostility because people are they feel that they are entitled to a bunch of stuff
Yeah.
that they're not necessarily entitled to, in my opinion.
Yeah. Um, absolutely. I just Judy, can you help me timestamp that? When did you experience that? Was that in the last bull run in 21, 22?
Yes,
Yeah.
2020. I think it was March of 2021. It was a Sunday afternoon. I could probably give you the exact date because that's when we realized that people were coming into the old marketplace.
Speculate. I do remember there was a run for historical NFTs when people were buying rocks and with the curio cards and
Anything.
all sorts of all sorts of
Hmm.
bits and pieces. But to be honest with you, like the aesthetics of a rock and a curio card don't really hit the spot. But I think these datas are actually quite beautiful and interesting to look at. So I'll take a deeper look.
Thank you.
Um,
Well, we do say that they were kind of. I mean, the curio cards are a very interesting project, and they preceded us. But I think that with Dada, you're really getting art by artists. You're getting like works of art. So I appreciate that you appreciate them.
yeah.
Yes.
But what are these artists doing today? Were they traditional world artists that you sort of brought into Dada, or were they sort of crypto artists that are sort of sticking around today?
It's
I
That's
don't.
a really, really good question. No one was a crypto artist because no one knew what that was. And when we curated this collection, we have all kinds of artists in Dada, and some of them have become rather well known in the crypto art community. Mojarra is a really good example. He is a great artist, a Mexican illustrator, um, but he came from traditional art, and when we curated this collection, we said, you all have to get a wallet. You have to get a MetaMask. And it was as if we were speaking in some foreign language that no one understood. They like, a what? A digital wallet? Like, what do you mean? An extension? And so at some point, because we had 30 artists, mostly from Latin America, and some of them come from fine art, and some of them are just like extraordinarily gifted, but they have never taken an art class in their lives, and some of them like couldn't even understand how to open a wallet, so we had to open some custodial wallets at the beginning. No one was a crypto artist. Now many of them, some of them have become, they saw the opportunity, they understood what this meant for them. And I think Mojarra is a perfect example because he now is really well known. He's like a rock star, and he's the guy who designed the cover and the art for my book as well, which we can talk about later. But I think it took him a while, according to him, but then he saw like these platforms coming along. I think he minted in known origin first, and he saw the potential, and I think it completely changed his life, and he's now really well known and he's in exhibitions. But there are other artists that have had also like modest success in crypto art, and there are other artists who are still working with Dada and drawing on Dada, but who are not really so much into NFTs. So we have a variety.
Nice.
I also have to say that when I look back into very early drawings, we have drawings on Dada from very well-known crypto artists that have like become extraordinarily successful, and that were tooling around with Dada because we were so early that there was no one before us. All the big platforms came after us. Super Rare, Known Origin, Maker's Place, like all of that came after us.
Amazing. Mohara, is he the one that's done this piece called "Feels Good Creeps"? And it's a chihuahua, a
Yes.
smoking chihuahua.
Yes, yes, yes.
I love
He
this
did.
piece.
He has like five different pieces, I think, five different creeps. He's really great. He has a great sense of humor. Hmm.
Amazing. Um, I definitely have to look into this collection a lot more deeply. So I appreciate you sharing a lot of that with us, Judy. To be honest, I had no idea about Dada had actually existed until we were sort of connected. I was aware of Rare Pepe's and a few other
Hmm.
sort of collections, but I sort of feel like Dada might be some hidden alpha here.
It is.
So So let's take a closer look. Um, and your book. Talk to us about your book. What's the book
Yes.
about? What inspired you to write it?
The book is about, it's a novel, so it's about this story of two young Mexicans, two young people from Mexico City who fall in love, but unfortunately they are from different sides of the tracks. He is a young man who has just recently been deported from the United States back into Mexico. He starts working at the house of this rich girl. So the story is like has been told many times. The story of an impossible love, but I said it in Mexico because what inspired me to write it is that I would come back to Mexico for work or to see my family. And because I had lived abroad, there were things that I never had really questioned, or I questioned, but had never really kind of shocked me before, that I would see now. And I thought, I would think, this is not right. Like the social inequality, the lack of social mobility, that kind of stuff was something that I wanted to write about. People write novels because they want to fix something with the world, or they not fix something, but they want to kind of enlighten. There are certain things about the world that should be different, right? So that's what inspired me to write it. And I had written this book. I couldn't find an agent for it. Then an editor from Spain from was creating a small new imprint, and he had read a short story of mine in a magazine, and he basically out of the blue um, called me to see if I had anything else because he loved my short story. So I took the novel out of the drawer where it was sitting there for like you know and then I sent it to him, and he really liked it, and he said, I want to publish this. So the novel was published on paper, I believe it was in 2021. And then it was Bea's idea. She said, you should turn this into an NFT, which I think is really a great idea. And we had seen that people were doing poetry NFTs, like they've done it quite successfully. People like Ana Maria Caballero and Sasha Stiles and Horace Vetier, and there's a number of poets. And I thought when I saw what they were doing, I thought, well, if you can make poetry into an NFT, which makes total sense, but poems are more contained, maybe smaller chunks of text. You could do anything. You can do any kind of literary work as an NFT. So I proposed it to Ismael, my editor, who comes from digital publishing, and he immediately understood. I mean, he immediately got it, and we decided to publish the NFT. And the NFT was published in Spanish at the time. I think it was 2022. We did it with the platform. We did it with Palm because it was really hard to get the right format for a book NFT that you can actually read. It's not a JPEG with a token attached. It's not a PDF. It's really like an NFT book. It's designed to work as an NFT. So that took a long time. And then the English version just came out last year, the English translation, and that is actually for sale now at ferragosto.xyz. But the lovely thing about the blockchain, which is part of why we are here, is that you can collect the book for zero point 0.1 ETH, but you can also read it when you go to Ferragosto. There's a link to read the book. It's on Arweave, and anyone can read it just like anyone can see any punk, no matter how expensive it is, right? So that's part of it. Like, we didn't want to token gate it. We want it to be available for people. But I think it's a beautiful object. I love what Mojarra did with the cover and with the. If you go into the book, you see that it has also like an interactive index and animated index. So he did these wonderful icons for the book, and I think it's the designer Alvaro Recuenco also had to really kind of struggle to be able to render this book so that it could be read anywhere on OpenSea and everywhere else. And so I'm very proud of it.
Beautiful, amazing. I'll definitely put the link in the show notes as well. And just out of curiosity, what's the supply on your NFTs?
Of the book, it's 150, only 150, and right now I think there's about 59 left.
Amazing. All
So
right,
yes.
take a look at that. Amazing. Right. What a sort of fantastic sort of backstory you've got, Judy. I think we could talk all day about
Yes.
Dada and all those bits and pieces, but more importantly, what's brought you to Punkcast and what's connected us today is CryptoPunks. Um, how did you get your first CryptoPunk? I know you sort of shared a little bit on your notes as you booked in the calendar, but this would be a good story. How did you get your first CryptoPunk?
It's a very good story because even though we were so early with Matt and John, even though they gave us their contract, it still is a bit astounding to me that we never got to claim them. We were busy building Dada, and then we learned that the claim was over and they were all gone. Not only that, but we also didn't get to buy them when they were $15 or when they were $40 or when they were $100, because I think we were super, just focused on building our own stuff, and because in retrospect, even though we loved them, we didn't know that they were going to be what they became later. So we completely missed the boat. And I believe that in 2018, I think I used to kind of bitterly, not complain, but like rue the fact that we completely missed the boat. So very generously, Matt and John gifted one to me and one to Bea, and that was how I got my 712. Very lovely and simple girl with two attributes.
Amazing. Yeah, she's beautiful. Straight hair, purple lipstick, very clean and simple. I can see the transfer happening on the 17th of December 2018 too, and having a serial less than 1,000 means it was a dev punk. So this is a really special NFT straight from the artists themselves, and that story behind it just makes it even
Can you
more
tell me a
special.
little bit about the serial number Def Punk? Because I assume that a low number is somehow important, but I have no idea what it means.
But basically, it just means that the first 1,000 of the collection were held by Matt and John themselves. And so I think from a collectability sort of standpoint, it's become a little bit more of a collectible trait to look for a serial less than 1,000 because it was actually at one point, sitting in their wallets and something that they owned at one point in time. I think at the moment, though, I think as part of the deal with Yuga, most of the, if not all of the punks, were transferred over to Yuga as part of that acquisition. So it's really sitting in Yuga's hands at the moment. And so if you have a look at some of the CryptoPunks that have been donating to some of the museums around the world, have provenance back to a stronger provenance back to the artist. I know all punks have a provenance back to Matt and John, the artist,
Hmm.
but in
Hmm.
particular, the serials of less than 1,000 have that sort of special trait.
Oh, but that makes me even more attached to it and more grateful, and it really moves me. It really moves me just to hear they came from their own wallets. It's something really actually super moving.
Yeah, I mean, the
Yes,
blockchain doesn't lie, right? I mean, just looking at your on-chain
right.
history, I mean, it's a beautiful story, and this is like, the color that you've sort of given on Punkcast just adds so much more depth to, I guess, the transactions and the dates that go along with Punk 712, which is really beautiful. Did you have a choice in which ones to pick, or did they just sort of pick
No,
out?
they pick them out. The one that they gave to me, I think, looks a little bit more like her. It has like, I think, curly hair. And no, I mean, it was just like this beautiful gesture that we, of course, appreciated very, very deeply. And yes, we're
Amazing,
still hodling, of course.
huddling. Well, I mean, to hold it for that long and to sort of see it rise all the way through, to hold it all the way through, right, must mean something to you. And I noticed that you also were part of the new What the Punk movie that's just been announced, and I think we released shortly, if not already. Um, what was your sort of involvement in that? And I guess what is what the punk?
Well, uh, What the Punk is a documentary about the story of the CryptoPunks is by a French filmmaker called Hervé Martin Delpierre. I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly. And he did a very. We went to the screening. There was a screening for cast and crew in Paris last week, and we were invited. That's why I went to Paris, to be honest, to that, and because Dada is in the Taschen book, that's the reason I flew there. And it is, I was very, I mean, it's a really, I think, lovely, thoughtful documentary on CryptoPunks and on the rise of this of crypto art in a way. And they interviewed me. They came to New York. They I think I spoke with them for like 2 hours. I immediately knew it had potential because all the questions that Hervé asked were really smart, and it was, I could see that there was a sensitivity there, and it wasn't only about millions and money and stuff like that. And I was really surprised to see that. I thought, the way these things work, they interview you for 2 hours and then they're going to take a 30-second snippet and that's going to be it. But I actually am a lot in the movie. I mean, I'm far more than I thought I would be. And I say some controversial things, particularly about the bored apes.
What did you
And
say?
But I
Give us
also,
this.
oh my
What,
God.
gives us a sneak peek,
Well,
Judy.
I actually I stand by this. I still believe this. It's a core tenet of mine that what bothers me is not if people want. This is not what I said, but this is some context. You want to buy a board ape, and you are fabulously happy with that. It's like, of course, your prerogative, free world. But what troubles me is when people don't understand the difference between a project like that and the CryptoPunks. Every single PFP project that ever happened is due to the CryptoPunks. That's the end of it. There is nothing before, and everything that came after is influenced by them. But the CryptoPunks are art. The CryptoPunks are art. And I will die on this hill. And I don't have to die on this hill because they're already in museums. So, um, uh, but what I said is that in my view, the apes do not have any value other than monetary value that this market has ascribed to them for some reason. They have zero aesthetic value, zero cultural value, zero historic value, zero humanist value. They are a product. They are a product like you buy baseball cards or like you buy. They are. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that, but they are not. I hate them pretty much. I'm so sorry to say that. And I don't hate anyone that owns them. And if you like packed your whatever, like filled your bags with them, good for you. But to me, like I once talked to these guys. I don't remember where it was. Like these young guys, like right in the middle of it must have been around NFT NYC, and they were telling me, "Have you heard about the bored apes?" And I'm like, "Yes, I have." Have you heard about the CryptoPunks? And they said, "No." And I'm like, okay, no. Like, no, no, no. You need to know your history. So I said some like very like something like that. But I also talk about the punks and I talk about how it felt at the beginning, and I talk about what the speculation that came later. And I also talk about why they are meaningful in terms of their contribution, not only to the space, but I actually think to the history of art. So um
What just on that line,
it's
then, Judy.
good.
Why, in your view, are they meaningful?
Uh, I think that there's something human about them, and this is something that I mentioned in the film. When you look at these little faces, at these avatars, first of all, I used to joke with Matt that they all look like him. I think they all look like Matt Hall, but but um, but they have like this enigmatic smile that's a little bit reminiscent of the Mona Lisa. You don't exactly know. They all have kind of the same expression, but somehow with the different attributes, they look like they may be feeling different things. And what it was clear to us as we saw them rise is that people really connected with them. People wanted to have the ones that look like them. And people, of course, like they created like entire personas around them. That is incredibly meaningful. The entire concept of an avatar that becomes almost like your personality. I think behind it is this like connection that you can only have with art. I mean, art does that to you. Then on top of it, the way that this project, I mean, it's 10,000 of them. There's all kind of diverse men, women, like people who smoke, like all kinds of really cool creatures. And they have like this really cool attitude about them, that is somehow like slightly aloof, but that you can actually, I believe, you can project into it whatever you want. But I think that they are hopeful. And I'm not a hopeful person. I am not an optimist. But when I look at the punks, I see a certain kind of like generous spirit of hopefulness, and the entire project is so innovative, is so well thought, is so beautifully executed, and it's human. It's the perfect marriage of the human, of the artistry of John and Matt. They call themselves creative technologists. We have been having this running argument where I said, "You're artist," and they're like, "No, no, no, we're really creative technologists." I'm like, "No, no, no. You are artists that happen to use technology as a medium, as a tool." Um, and so I think that how it was be how it was really nice to see in the documentary. They show some of the code of the attributes that I had never seen, and it's just astounding that they created these little faces, you know, with this kind of three-fourths angle, which is very like in the history of art. Is the kind of portraits are like that. There's not always not looking straight at you. If you look at the Mona Lisa or you look at like a classical portraiture, there's always this kind of angled thing. So they are a continuation. They're a continuation of art, and as well as I think a perfect metaphor for art getting involved with technology, and particularly NFTs, um, in a way that is both completely technical and geeky, but also totally human.
Wow. What a description. Judy, you've got a way with words and very romantic about how you've spoken about CryptoPunks. I absolutely love it. And I think the way that you were describing Matt and John is, I think we're in some ways the ETH ecosystem are very, very lucky to have Matt and John, because I think it's pretty rare to find engineers and artists that have that skill set to do what they sort of did. I think a lot of the other blockchains across there, they're either really coming from a very technical background, um, without the art sort of side and the creative side, and they're really struggling to build and bootstrap the community. And in some ways, when you talk about culturally and historically sort of relevant, I sort of feel like punks were behind a lot of that, right? Building that sort of community element to that too. So yeah, very well said.
I'm glad you're bringing up community because that's another byproduct that no, I don't know that anyone expected it to this at the very beginning when money was not that big, when the stakes were not that high. The love and the passion that people had for this, and that community that was created on Discord and like wherever. I mean, that is also an incredible thing, that of course when you look at fine art, we all love Van Gogh, but you don't have, because of this digital square in which we move, you don't have the immediacy, you don't have like the power of bringing people from all over the world together in such a way. That is incredible, and if they were less charming, I don't think the same thing would have happened. If they were less, if they were less evocative of whatever it is that they reflect of people, people would have been enthusiastic like you are enthusiastic about any other kind of collectible. But this was different, no?
Mm, very different, very special indeed. Um, wow. Okay, so Judy, I want to ask you some fire questions then that I typically ask of guests. Um, if money wasn't an issue, what would be your dream punk? Do you think? Do you have any favorite traits?
You know what? I kind of like the ball. I really have to look more closely into them. I'm not like you guys that are I'm so super like obsessed with them, but I like the ones that are a little bit rebellious perhaps. I stopped smoking a long time ago, but I just love that punks that smoke or there are punks that have a bit of like a fuck you attitude. I would like to find something like that, but I
Perfect.
actually think that they're all I mean, what's not to like, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a cigarette, so yeah, they're
Oh,
very
good.
punkish. So I'll take your favorite trait. Um, and if you were to look across the punk community, do you have any favorite punk personalities that come to mind for you?
I think anyone who I can't really tell. I know a lot of people have used them as avatars. I didn't use mine because that Bea did that really nice portrait of me, and I thought I really like it. But I don't have a preference. I really think that they're all lovely. I like the ones that seem to be more open and friendly. You know, like there's people that you just look at and because it's not the punk's personality, it's the personality behind the person who owns the punk that comes across. Um, so I'm really like very
Do any names come to mind?
ecumenical. Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I now know Phantom Scribbler because he uses his punk. I know there's like I think Sharon has a beanie.
mhm,
It was so funny. Like I was introduced to Chuli in
lovely.
Paris,
Mhm.
but I heard Julie, and so I'm like, who is this person? And it took me like 2 days to realize. Then I saw her in the documentary. I'm like, oh my god, you are Julie, because that's the other thing that happens. Like when people have a different avatar and like a completely different name, there's
She's
I don't
lovely.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't think
that's okay. I
of
think Phantom Scribbler,
anyone else.
Shuli, good sort of picks so far.
Yeah.
um, and if you had to describe punk culture for you, how would you describe that?
Well, I think that are different kind of like uh, almost, and it's good because a culture should not be like a monoculture. There are different strains of punk culture. So I think the one that I'm fond of is the culture of passion and love for this art. The people who were really like passionate about them before the speculation came in, and punk culture is about, I think, generosity and I don't know, openness and experimentation and being really creating community in crypto art and a community that is based on respect and shared passion. That's the culture that I like. The culture that is about I want to turn my punk into a Happy Meal at McDonald's, or like I want to own the IP of my punk because I paid 6 figures for it or however much I paid. That's not a culture that I appreciate, and I think that is against the ethos of the punks because the ethos, I mean, they were given away, right? The punks were given
Yeah.
away for free at the beginning. So for me, punk culture would be, as always, connected to the art.
Yes. Beautifully said. Um, and just on that, how do you feel about, I guess, V1 punks?
Aha. I have my very strong opinion is that because Matt and John are artists, they have a right to the intellectual property that they created. And if they decided that those punks, as I said, are no longer valid or however you want to call it, that's their prerogative. And that's what I think. I know that a lot of people don't agree with me, but I think that that's the artist's desire. Now, the artist's desire isn't always honored, perhaps, by the collectors, but the artist made a statement, and I think that should be respected. If an artist
Yeah.
said, "Don't burn my art," and you go ahead and burn it, well, you can do it, but that doesn't make it right.
Yes.
I go with the artist on that.
What about the Yuga acquisition? How did you feel about that when that happened?
Of course, it threw everyone for a loop, and I mean, it was kind of interesting to process. We were aware of the, of course, everyone who went into that Discord was aware of the level of hostility and absolute harassment that Matt and John and Larva Labs went through. Um, and my I you know this is a supposition on my part. This is not, I don't have any evidence for this, but I feel that they were really, really kind of like, uh it had gotten out of control. They say so in the movie. I think that they were really hurt by what happened, all the terrible violent behavior that happened in that Discord. And mm, I didn't love that they gave it to Yuga, but I can understand that they were probably looking for some sort of platform or company that had the structure to shepherd them. Because I remember speaking to some members of the community that are really, really disappointed. And somebody said to me, "Why didn't they give it to us?" And I thought, have you seen the Discord? Like, I thought, they probably, after seeing how the community turned against one another, of course, I don't think they could feel that the community could take good care of them. Now, this is my own opinion. I'm not putting words in their mouths, but this is what I feel may have happened. And maybe it was a big, like, fuck you gesture, saying, you want the intellectual property? Here you go. There you have it. We're going to give it to people that are going to be able to give you what you want.
Mm.
And we're going to, like, cry all the way to the bank, which I hope they did.
I'm sure they did. Um, Judy, as you sort of talk about that too, like, I mean, there's so many different takes on it too, and I think it's every single time I ask that question of different punks, everyone's got a different view on it. But I think that's probably what adds to the appeal of the CryptoPunk story, right? I think this discourse is going to continue for many years, after we've sort of long gone. But yeah, I'm probably with you on that too. I think I could sort of understand and appreciate the situation Matt and John were in at the time. Um, Judy, this has been a super fun and exciting conversation. Really sort of delighted to have you on and host you and hear about your personal journey and story and your view on punk. Super passionate about it too, and it's probably just rekindled, I guess, my love of punks in some ways too. But I guess maybe just handing the mic over to you for a moment, just to say a couple words, I guess, closing comments. But also, if you had to leave a message for the next owner of your punk, 712, what would you like to say to them?
Take good care of my girl. That's what I would say to them. I mean, I don't see myself detaching from her anytime soon, but I would say, take good care of her, shepherd her, love her, understand the importance that she and her brothers and sisters have in history, and just admire her and enjoy her.
Amazing. And Judy, what's the best place for people to find you and any closing comments from your side?
You can find me on Twitter at Grande Enchilada with one E, Grande Enchilada. That's pretty much where all the news and all everything about me is. And it's really been delightful. You're a wonderful interviewer. And I'm really happy that closing comments like the punks are now at the Pompidou Museum in France and other museums. There's movies coming out about them, and we're starting to see the impact that they have had on our culture and our little niche culture, but also that they will have, I believe, like in the broader history of art. And it's a really good moment to look back into their story and appreciate them.
Amazing. Well said. And it makes me rethink any sort of new collections coming out to be the punks of X on any collection by any chance. But Judy, super fun connecting, and hopefully I can catch you at one of these events in the near future. But guys, that wraps up an episode of PunkCast for the week, and we'll be back next week with another amazing punk. Bye for now.